think of somebody today or tomorrow that you can encourage, or you can say something nice for, or even do something nice for without them even knowing it.
Absolutely.
That makes you feel good too.
Welcome to the Meier Clinics podcast. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meier Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Hi, listeners. Back from a long hiatus, we have Dr. Paul Meier with us. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Kristin. It's good to be with you again.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. It's been too long. Now, listeners, just so you know, we are going to be talking about the many influences in our lives that we do not see. And Paul is going to be in his psychiatrist role, but also he's an ordained minister, so he'll be in that role as well. And no matter what your religious or non-religious beliefs are, there's always something that you can gain wonderful nuggets of insight and inspiration from many different places. So we hope that you'll stick around for the whole thing and get what you can out of our talk today. So Paul, thank you so much. We have 20 things that you put together, and we'll
cover as many as we can today.
We're going to start with number 20 first. So you go ahead with that.
I moved it up to number 1. What's really cool is the reason we did this whole thing. We didn't even know we were going to do this topic a couple days ago, and I was asked to write a chapter in a book, and it was a chapter about the many powerful influences in our lives that we don't see, and what they were in my own life. And the author of the book is a psychologist who has written several books, and he's having different psychiatrists and psychologists write their stories. And that's what's going to be. Each one of us has a chapter. And so that was Tuesday night, and Tuesday night. And so on Tuesday night, I got on. I rescheduled all my patients so I could finish working on the book, and I started typing at noon, and I got done at midnight, and so it was on this topic. And then the next day, in that morning, I emailed Kristin and said, I still don't have an idea. Lots of times one of us or the other will get an idea of what we'd like to talk about. And sometimes we even plan a couple in advance, not often, but, we like to be spontaneous. But I emailed Kristin. I said, can you think of a topic? That was before I spent the day finishing my chapter. And she said, I thought of one, and it was on the many powerful influences in our lives that we don't see, and I said, that is really an act of God. I said, from my perspective, I said, that's too much of a coincidence that you didn't know I was even working on that chapter. You had no idea I was even writing a chapter, did you? And or what the topic would be. And she suggested that we do one on the topic that I just spent till midnight finishing a chapter on. So I said, well, I think that's a God thing. I think let's go ahead and do that. That sounds good. And so we're going to share some of the things. Now the book is, since I'm a psychiatrist and an ordained minister, if you read my chapter, it's going to be a lot of Bible verses and things like that in it. And this is a secular broadcast. But Mental Health News Radio is a secular broadcast, but I get away with some of that, slipping a lot of that in. I get forgiven. But
yes, and on the Meier Clinics podcast.
Oh, then it's open. Then I'm free to do all that. Yeah. Because it's mostly Christians listening to that one, and so forgive me if I get too biblical for some of you, but whether you're a Christian or whatever your beliefs are, or even an atheist, there's things you can learn from this that I hope that will be helpful. There's a lot of things in these points we're going to cover that I think will be real helpful for you to understand yourself better and
Absolutely.
have more control over your life.
Which is what that's what made me think of this was my life has profoundly changed since 2020. And, I'm speaking to the choir here. I mean, so everybody's lives have changed, but it's interesting to sit back and watch how and where it has changed. And that's what made me think of the topic, because it has profoundly changed. And I'm still, all this change is happening, and I'm still tired and crawling out of some, PTSD from last year, and the grief from the amount of people in my life that passed away or are still dealing with, lingering effects of COVID because they had it. I mean, there's so many things that, would make it like, I can't deal with all this change. What's happened? This is too much change after what just happened, which was a big change. And yet we are getting through it. So I wanted to kind of focus on how we can, we're all in the same boat. So we have to move through what just happened, and how do we do that?
My perspective is so different now from 2 years ago. On a lot of things, and I'm not going to get into offending anybody. But my view of the news media, my view of political leaders and their desire to help people and all that, and I know there's good news media and there's good political leaders still, but that's not in my chapters. That's not in my points here, but since you brought it up, the disillusionment and the corruption and that's been disheartening to me and a lot of my clients. More of my clients are who are somewhat depressed about that than they are about losing their jobs or other things that happened. Although plenty are depressed about that too. We're swamped at our psychiatric clinic here with people that are going through struggles, and especially young people in their 20s, surprisingly, and looking for meaning in their lives and things.
Yeah.
I had 2 check in yesterday, and but it's been an eye-opening experience too, though. I feel stronger than I did 2 years ago.
I do too.
And a lot of good things have happened as a result. For example, you've been pushing using electronics in medicine for years, and I've been resisting it. And
here you are. So
I had to do it. I had to do it during COVID. I had to do it. Now that I've done it, man, it's awesome. My patients, they don't have to take a half a day off of work and drive here and get a babysitter and all that stuff. They can just take a coffee break, go out in their car, and have their 15-minute medicine check with me from the car. And I don't have to write them a script and hand it to them anymore. I just email it. I e-scribe it straight. So there's a lot of good things that have happened too as a result of a struggle and a horrible event like COVID.
Yeah.
But and I guess that's a good topic that, when people look back on their lives that are older, like me, and you ask people, when's the time in your life when you experience the most growth? It's almost always after the worst experiences.
Yes.
And so one point that's not even on my list here, but it ought to be, is that one thing that helps us to have powerful influences in our lives that help us to grow is disasters.
Absolutely.
There's no guarantee that, I believe we have a God of love, but at the same time, he allows horrible things to happen to people, and I don't understand. I can't explain it. And but he helps us through them, and I believe, I believe in eternity we're going to not have horrible things. But anyway, so let's get into some of the ways that we grow, though. One is that in our dreams. Not as a Christian, I believe God speaks to us. Job actually was the first one to write any of the Bible. It was like 4,000 years ago, and he wrote, "For God does speak now one way, and now another. He speaks to us in a lot of subtle ways, and though no one perceives it, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, He may speak in their ears, or He may terrify them with warnings." And I thought of the many ways that God has spoken to me in dreams over the years, and I'll just give you one. When I heard that word terrify, I thought, well, one time I had a really, really, really. My daughter was in grad school, and about 20 years ago or something like that, and I had a real bad dream where she was in a car accident in California. She was driving down the highway at a fast rate of speed. Of course, I was going the speed limit, but 70, and her car suddenly stopped for no reason, and somebody ran into the rear end of her car, and then this big cartoon ambulance came and looked, and nobody was hurt, and it went on. That was the dream, and so I felt like, boy, this is pretty intense. Maybe I better call her and warn her just in case it's God, helping me to, make sure she's okay. And I so I asked my wife, she was home, but I said, I think I ought to call her and warn her to be careful today. And my wife said, nah, she's going to think you're nuts, and so I didn't, but we did stop and pray for her. And then 4:00 that afternoon, we got a phone call from her and saying, "Guess what, Dad?" I said, "What?" She said, "I was driving down the highway really fast, and on my way to college, grad school, and my brakes locked, and I came to a sudden halt, and a guy ran into the rear end of my car, and but neither of us was injured, and I was able to still drive my car home, and my wife was on the phone with me, and she verified it, and I said, I had that dream last night. I was going to call you this morning and warn you to be careful, but we thought, it's just a dream, and so this is uncanny. So what are the odds? What I mean? Of course, there's different ways people could explain that as, like collective unconscious and things like that. But I believe it was God. So, okay.
I think too that, well, I want to point out too, we've done shows about dreams, and you've written books about dreams, and I think about them so much differently now because of knowing you. I think about, well, every person in the dream is a representation of me. What does that mean? So I just wanted to thank you for that, because I really look for things within them. What is it I need to learn from this, even though it's doesn't make any sense whatsoever in the waking hours. What nugget of things I need to know could I glean from this dream?
Yeah, we encourage you to listen to we've done a number of 1-hour podcasts on dreams. And I'm really into it. Being a psychiatrist, I'm really into. I've asked my patients their dreams for 45 years now, and I've used it to gain a lot of insights into what their problems are. And even here, we've got a day program where people come 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for about 3 or 4 weeks for intensive therapy if they're feeling, so depressed they can't go to work or going through a severe crisis or something. And I ask them if they had any dreams, and sometimes they'll come and say, "Dr. Meier, I had a really bad dream last night." And I tell them there's no such thing as a bad dream. They say, "What do you mean?"
Right.
I said, because even the bad dreams we can learn from. Even the nightmare you can learn from, because your dreams are written by your unconscious. Your unconscious is the writer, the director, the actors, the cinematographer, and the colors and everything. And everything in your dream, I believe everything in every dream has meaning. And your unconscious is expressing something. And like Kristin just said, you might be more than one person in the dream. You might be, in a dream, you might be holding a little baby, and that little baby could be you, it could be you as an adult taking care of your inner child, or
Right.
different things. And the dreams, I asked my patients this week about their dreams, and like one keeps getting chased by men, and sure enough, in her life experiences, she's been, raped and had some bad experiences, and so of course she's got a dream about that, and I tell them, whatever you dream about, that's what you need to work on in your therapy. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Anyway, so we can learn a lot from dreams, and we encourage you to listen to our tapes on it to learn how to interpret dreams. Because there's a lot of books that you could read on interpreting dreams that are just hogwash.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a coin, it means this, and if it's a cloud, it means that, and this means this means that. And it's not that way. It's not that simple. It could be different things for different people. And
absolutely, it's unique to each
yeah.
person and your life experience. A fish in your dream could have a completely different meaning than it would, in someone else's dream. But I love this next one where you talk about the bully. I have something to say about that too. But explain
okay.
this one. I love the story.
Okay. One way that we learn a lot as we go through life. So we're talking about all the subtle ways that we learn things. Like dreams aren't something where you go to school and study the topics in your dream, unless you study dreams or something. But and another one is through positive and negative experiences throughout your life that you thought were just meaningless. Like I remembered, as I was writing the chapter, I remembered when I was about 7 years old, I was playing in the snow. I grew up in Michigan, and I live in Texas now, but I grew up in Michigan, and my mom was sitting on the front porch, but you couldn't really see her very well from where I was, so the bully didn't see her. And I was playing in the snow, making a snowman or something down by the front sidewalk, maybe 70 feet away from the porch. And a bully that was maybe 10 years old walked by, and I didn't even know the guy. I mean, I had seen him, but I didn't even know the guy. And so he walked by, and just to be a bully, he pushed me down, which was a total surprise because, I'm not used to people being nasty to me. Well, I am now, but not, it wasn't yet.
He hadn't been.
Most people aren't,
pushed too far out to that world.
But he pushed me down in the snow, and he was waiting for my reaction. He thought I'd either try to fight him, and he'd beat me up, or he thought I would cry, which is, he would be happy with either reaction. But instead, I got up and looked at him, and sort of analyzed him and brushed the snow off, and I turned around, walked up to my mom. And he was just standing there and amazed that nothing happened, and he walked off. But I went up to my mom and I said, I wonder why he did that. And I think I learned even back then that I think God designed me to be a shrink, that I was, instead of taking it personally and crying or getting real mad and wanting to go fight him or something, I stopped even at age 7 and thought, I wonder what motivated him to do something like that. That's strange,
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meier of the Meier Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meier Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
Okay, what were you going to say?
Well, mine, I'm going to try to keep it short too, but I've always been really like, oh my gosh, I'm going through the same thing. I have this same kind of person in my life, or the same situation. How awful. I've learned nothing, because here I am in the same situation again. And then I started working with this amazing counselor a few years ago, and she'd say, well, what do you mean that's awful? You're just going back and you're checking your work. There's nothing wrong that this seemingly same thing is happening in your life. It's not about that. You're not you're not attracting this awful stuff because you haven't learned anything. That's not what it's about at all. It's about how are you behaving? You're given these gifts to see how you're behaving in it now. And
yeah, are you handling it? Are you handling it better, right?
Exactly. And so I've had a couple of things go on, big things. Like one, I took a regular job. I don't need to, and I say that with much humility because many people have had to do that after last year. But I took a very part-time regular job because I needed a distraction, and it's with a wellness center, and so I get all these wellness.
You mean this year? This year you did that?
This year, yeah, I just did.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Ago. Yeah, This is news to you too, and they needed help, and I said, okay, sure. And I get all these wellness treatments for free, which I need because I did not take care of myself physically last year. And I've done this once before. I did this when I was not in a good place health-wise a few years ago. And so I thought about that and how I react to people that come in and see me and are rude because they think I'm just a whatever, instead of the CEO of blah, blah, blah. And it's been really good for me to go, oh, I remember feeling this way a few years ago. And my reaction was very different than it is now. Now I'm like you with the bully where I just go, I wonder what's going on with them, that they're so rude to who they deem as just an office worker or a service person, like I don't need to announce, well, I actually run a podcast network, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to do that. I think about it. My ego is still there, but
me too.
I don't, but I don't care. I just go, interesting. And I'm glad that I met that woman, the counselor, because I now don't shame myself for here you are again, blah, blah, blah. More of, no, what's the gem in this? What can I learn from this now? Oh, I am handling it much more maturely or with much more humility or what have you. So that's what made me think of it was this.
Yeah. A word of encouragement to our listening family right now is, we probably all have some bullies in our lives, even as adults. And I have people who get depressed because they keep dwelling on some bad thing that happened to them a year ago or 2 years ago or 6 months ago. They keep dwelling. Well, I want vengeance. I want this. I want that. That person's still getting away with it and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I remind them, I remind them that, if you hold in bitterness towards somebody, that's like swallowing rat poison and hoping it hurts the other guy. And there's 8 billion people on planet Earth, and that guy or gal is just one of them. That's just one of them. Are you going to, how much of your life are you going to ruin worrying about somebody that's irrelevant?
I know, and I think about that too. I had a horrible experience with, which listeners have already heard this, with a place that I lived during COVID. It was awful. And I could have written a book about it. I could do a whole show about it. I did a few shows kind of about it. And now that I'm out of it and I'm in this amazing place with my family, I think I don't want to give another 1 nanosecond of my life to that person that ran the place, to what happened there. I've learned what I wanted to learn out of that for now. I may learn other things later, but I don't want to give that person, they don't deserve another moment of my time. They got enough last year. So move on and go. And that's very different, because when you are in some very psychologically abusive situations, part of the healing of that is just going on and on and on and reliving what happened. And you have to go through that process in order to get to the other side of that, which is that you don't just go on and on and on and obsessively think about it. So I'm not putting that way of dealing with it down. It's just, when you've been through it enough, I think you do get to a place where you don't have to go on and on about something anymore. You can just go, okay, that took enough of my piece, and I'm not giving any more to that anymore. You know what I mean? I think age helps.
Mm-hmm. I saw a client today, and I don't want to give away his or her identity, but it's somebody that's like a concert performer. I mean a professional performer. Let's just put it that way. And but I went over I'm going to say his. I mean, it may be a guy, it may be a gal, but I went over his psych testing today. I said, man, according to your testing, and I knew it anyway, just from chatting with him or her, for the past week or two, couple of weeks. According to your testing, you really put yourself down a lot. No matter what you do, it's not enough, and which is true of a lot of performers. A lot of pro athletes are that way too. And something I try to get them to do that we've mentioned a lot of times on this program is, and I'd like our listeners, I encourage you to do this right now too. Write a letter to yourself right now, just a couple sentences, and put today's date down, and put dear, and put your own first name there. I promise from today forward to be your best friend, and I'm going to make an effort, not perfect, but I'm going to make an effort not to say anything negative to you that I wouldn't tell my best friend under the same circumstances. And so I asked this person to do that a couple of weeks ago, and I have to keep reminding him, are you doing that? Are you doing that? Because he's getting gradually better, but he tends to do that. And I say, you know what? This person thinks that way because, you don't think that way unless you grew up with a parent that was always critical. I mean, once in a while, you're born with some of that perfectionism and all that, but I tell them, do you need what you're doing is still believing your dad. Your dad always told you that you weren't good enough, and you're smart. You're an adult now. Do you want to go through life believing that? And I said, do you really need your dad's acceptance? Do you need my father's acceptance? And he said, no. I said, do I need your father's acceptance? And he said, no. And I said, well, there's 8 billion people on planet Earth. Your dad's just one of them. You don't need his acceptance. And God says in Psalm 68, he takes the lonely and places them in families. And I said, God gives me fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters through the relationships that I develop. You don't need your genetic sperm donor or your egg donor. Pardon the expression. I said, you really don't need your sperm donor or your egg donor to accept you. They're just two people on this planet. And I think it helped. I really think it helped for him to look at it in that perspective. But
it's good too to know that people that, I think a lot of us learned this through COVID as well, because I saw so many people just really back off of the whole obsession with celebrities. And I mean celebrities in any field, not just movie stars, but someone who's a celebrity in the electronics field or in the whatever, or a celebrity, Hollywood. Like we all got taken to the same level because of what was going on in 2020, and people just really were like, I don't care if you're hanging out with Justin Timberlake. I don't care if, who cares? But then realize, oh, wait a minute, whoever, I'm just using Justin Timberlake as an example, but whoever it is goes through the same insecurities and psychological issues and trauma that you do.
Yeah. That's right. And plus, my wife and I used to be movie buffs. We'd go to probably 2 movies a week, and we were pretty social. And this past year, we spent most of the time where I wasn't working. I worked every day, and I still came here to work and being a psychiatrist because it was an essential medical field.
Right, business.
And but when I was home, it was mostly us by ourselves, and we learned to really enjoy just watching, old TV series all the way through, and movies, and just hanging out with each other. There were times that she didn't enjoy it. I think I'm a pretty nice guy, but I guess I'm not always. And but there were times that we got a little irritated with each other, but I think it brought us closer, and now that we can go to movies and stuff again, we really don't want to.
Right.
I haven't been to one yet. When things opened up, we do go out to eat, but not as much as we used to. And we do play cards. We get together with. In fact, I went to my first, larger card party a few nights ago, and that was really fun. This past Memorial weekend, and where there were about 4 couples there, and we didn't even social distance. We sat around and played around the table, but I think most of them have had their shots, and I had COVID, as you know, in January.
Right.
But I took the forbidden fruit. I took hydroxychloroquine the whole past year because I'm a physiologist and a doc and an MD, and I knew it would help. But anyway, I took hydroxychloroquine the whole year, and so in January, here I'm 76, diabetic, sleep apnea, and when I got it, the only reason I knew I had it was I ran out of cologne and went to Needless Markup, Neiman Marcus, to get another bottle, and I couldn't smell it. And so I got tested, and sure enough, I was positive on a short and a long test, and I did get somewhat tired where I had to take a nap a couple afternoons, but I didn't have any cough or fever or anything. And my doctor says, that the hydroxychloroquine kept me from having any of those symptoms. And but that's another thing, that disgusts me, political media and all that. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to get bit. I go through life bitter. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, so anyway, I've enjoyed having my lifestyle change. I didn't at the time, but now I really do. I like the new lifestyle. I still get together with friends, but not as much. And my wife and I enjoy being together more. And I don't need to go to movies. I'll probably go to some, but we enjoy watching them on television just as much as, So anyway.
I think I enjoy people more. What I enjoy about this job, it's a couple days a week, and I get to speak to people in person, and I listen better. I only say what feels relevant to the conversation. I don't feel this need to impress anyone. I just feel more within myself, comfortable in myself. And so I really enjoy having just regular conversations.
A lot of people are really lonely that I see. Really lonely because they had to work. I've got a gal in the day program right now who's real depressed because she's a real extrovert, loves to be with people, and she had to work from her home. A lot of people I get to work from my home now, but she had to work from her home the whole time. She says it's really lonely, for her.
Yeah.
I've been lucky
because a lot of people.
I came to work every day here at my office, and so I kept on hanging out with my people that I've worked with for 20, 30 years, and so I had my family here and my family, and then my wife at home, and so I was fortunate in that regard. But a lot of my clients have really gone through some severe loneliness.
Absolutely.
Or when they did spend a lot of time with their mate, they found out what a jerk the mate is and how
they really didn't like them. Yeah, exactly. So we're on number 4.
But okay, number 4 is one way that we get a lot of direct and indirect guidance is through our own genetic gifts and weaknesses, and becoming aware of them. That there's certain things that you may dream of doing that you're just not equipped to do. I loved sports, but they didn't love me. I'm not gifted at fine motor skills, like golf and stuff. And I even wrote a sports psychology book with Gary Player, the Hall of Fame golfer, and with another pro golfer, choices of champions, and Jim Hiskey, the other pro golfer, he even gave me lessons, and he finally gave up, and so I play video golf now. I gave up. I gave my bag to somebody, and I don't play real golf anymore. So I know God didn't call me to be a pro golfer because I'm too spastic, But I was gifted at certain things. I was like writing. I mean, I wrote about 15 pages yesterday. I mean, or when I finished that book, I guess that was Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night, I got about 15 pages written that one evening, and I can get on a roll and just write, and it comes so fast. I look up at my computer to read what I've just written. I said, look what I wrote. It just sort of flows. And so I'm gifted in certain things and weak in others, and I believe as a Christian, I believe that God designs us. My favorite chapter in the whole Bible is Psalm 139, and it says that God designed us in our mother's wombs with certain strengths and weaknesses, and it says that before when our arms and legs were just little buds and stuff, he was designing us, and that he counts about us. He thinks about each one of us individually so many times a day that we can't even count them. They're as the grains of sand on the sea, and only a supernatural being could do that with billions of people, and that he says he loves us, and with one arm he hugs us, and with another arm he leads us. He brings a whole bunch of subtle little hints along the way of ways that we can grow and help others more and be a blessing to others instead of living a life of selfishness or we take advantage of others. So he hugs us with one arm and he guides us with the other, and but often behind the scenes that we don't see. And I love the way that psalm ends. King David wrote that, and King David said, he ends it with a prayer. He says, God, please show me my innermost thoughts. Reveal to me my innermost thoughts so that I can grow and walk in a way that's pleasing to you. Freud didn't invent the unconscious. David wrote about it 3,000 years ago. He was saying, show me my innermost thoughts that I don't see. Show me my unconscious, all these unconscious factors that are influencing my life, and so I can grow. And there's other passages of scripture that talk about that too. Paul wrote about that. And one reason to meditate on the Bible is because God will use it to reveal to us our innermost thoughts, things that we don't see, and help us to grow. And because when you see all these innermost thoughts, like the person I saw today, that professional performer, when he sees his innermost thoughts, that the self-condemnation is not true, it's false. And I said, what would you say to your best friend if he did this? You just put yourself down for this. And what would you say to your best friend if he did that? Would you call him a jerk or a stupid idiot? Well, no. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Well, because it's not true. Well, if it's not true for him, why would it be true for you? Oh.
Right. I know.
You can be a genius. It's surprising how many geniuses think that stupidly. I said that, that's stupid. You're smart. You don't need to think stupid. I said, I'll be critical of you right now, and for thinking, crap about yourself. Okay, anyway, and so David prayed that God would show him his innermost thoughts. And the reason that's good is that's a good prayer whether you're believing in God or not. Seek to understand your innermost thoughts so that you can grow and learn from them. I've told you before about the movie star I treated who was 37 or 38 going through her 6th or 7th divorce. And,
right.
And all of them were jerks and alcoholics, and they all ran around her. They all beat her up. And why would somebody that's intelligent and beautiful and famous movie star, why would she keep marrying 6 or 7 guys in a row like that? And it's because her dad, I got to make it real short because we've talked about the story before, but her dad was an alcoholic who beat up on her mom and beat up on her, and her dad sexually abused her for years growing up. And so she was trying to fix her childhood. So her unconscious was driving her to pick these guys to fix her childhood and to try to get the love of somebody like her dad that she never got, and to get vengeance on her dad. But there were unconscious motives dictating her life. She wasn't in control of her life. She was a puppet. Right. And but when she gained insight and learned about this, then she never repeated that again in the future. She's done great ever since, and because the truth set her free. And so we need to not let our unconscious drive our lives. We need to drive our own lives. And so you need insight in order to be able to do that.
And I think what 2020 did for so many people globally is it made us all have to stop and deal with ourselves in big ways and little ways. There was nowhere to run and hide because we couldn't be out with all these distractions like the movies and parties and, working too many hours and, all the things that we do. It's unique to each person, but there was a lot of, oh boy, I really have to just be with myself and wrestle with, what's in our unconscious and why, why are we letting this run our lives? Because it's really interesting when you do see yourself as your own best friend to be like you were with the bully, where you just stop and you observe this behavior. You're observing how you bully yourself, and you're okay. And instead of beating yourself up further, a lot of people that I know of, myself included, stood back and went, that's why I do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can look at it, you can then be more awake as you go throughout your life, and you can make changes, tweak this, tweak that,
People come into my office crying sometimes. Dr. Meier, I just can't figure out who I am. I tell them it doesn't matter who you are. Who do you want to be? Right. I mean, it does matter who you are, and so you can figure out, where to move away from. But who do you want to be? That's the important thing. Don't worry about who you are. Figure out who you are, but use it to move on and figure out who do you want to become. And when according to psychiatry research, about 85% of our basic personality is formed by the 6th birthday. And that just means the way we look at men, women, ourselves, marriage, God. Dear Heavenly, when you're a kid and learn how to say goodnight prayer, you're thinking, dear Heavenly version of my earthly Father. So even the way you think, if I had 8 billion people on earth, if I had them all write a essay about what they think God is like, every essay would be a little bit different. So we'd all be a little bit wrong. You know what I mean? Nobody would be 100% right. And, but what I found in psychiatry is that most people think God's like whatever their dad was like or their mom. And so people that had a harsh dad think there's a harsh God, and those who had a lenient parent who spoiled them, gave them whatever they want, they're name it, claim it, believers in God who think God just owes them to give them the next Cadillac. And,
right.
My dad was loving, but he was a strict German immigrant. And if I got all A's and a B, he'd say, well, now, why'd you get that B? And so I tended to think God was a German immigrant. And so I had a hard time early on in my life thinking that no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. And
right.
but I gained insight and overcame that. Now I don't feel like I can say no to people now. When they ask me to do different things, I can say no. It's okay. I don't have to do everything. And so I hope all of us grow. What happened, unfortunately, during COVID is a lot of people, most of us are scared to look inside ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm scared. I think we're all scared to look inside ourselves. And when I went to being a psychiatrist, we had to go to therapy for our own growth. And in therapy, I'd be wide awake and alert and enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, my therapist would start getting into some insight, showing me something that I didn't see before. And I would all of a sudden I'd get real tired and almost conk out.
Fall asleep. I
did
that
turn
too.
off the lights, the party's over. And she would use that. She would use that to say, okay, this is whatever you just fell asleep on. That's what we need to, focus on. But we're afraid of it. But what happened during COVID is a lot of my clients that were just coming from medication, but didn't get therapy, when they went through, when they started spending a lot of time by themselves and having time to get insight, began drinking too much or getting addicted to different things, or putting on 30 or 40 pounds. I had one person put on 42 pounds because they ate themselves away from looking at themselves. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. Yes. I gained weight during COVID too. So.
Well, almost everybody gained a little bit, but because less activity. So, I mean, but I'm talking about,
A significant amount. Yeah.
And so that we need to. If you need to get therapy, get it. You can get, even if we're not confined now, but a lot of our therapists still see most of their clients just by remote. It works fine.
It is. It's terrific. I always love that in therapy when some new nugget. Oh my gosh, I can chew on that. I mean, that excites me. But I've been going to therapy for a long time. So.
Yeah. And we're sort of skipping around, but Don, number 12 on the list that you and I have is there's influences. There's people in our lives that seem insignificant that really end up being significant. Like when I had to write this chapter, I thought about when I was 13, there was an 89 or so year old lady that went to our church, and she was so nice. And most teenagers didn't bother to talk to old people, but I enjoyed older people.
Me too.
It's a good thing now that I am one. And and so when I saw her walking in or out of church, I would say hi to her. Hi, Mrs. Arnold. I'm Mrs. Arnold. And she walked up to me one time when I was 13, as we were walking out of a church service, and walked up to me and sort of shocked me. And she put her hands on my shoulders, one on each shoulder, and looked me right in the eyes and said, "Paul, I'm praying for you. And someday I think God's going to use you to help a lot of people." And I just got the shivers and thought, well, I mean, I was planning on being a carpenter like my dad and went into business with him or something. But I just got the shivers and said, well, thank you. And then sort of put it out of my mind, but it kept coming back to mind. I kept thinking about it, and I still do. That was, when I was 13. So that was over 60 years ago. And I still think about it. I thought about it when I was writing the chapter, and that's and I'd like to encourage all of our listening family, think of somebody. It might be your one of your kids, or it could be a neighbor. It could be a parent. It could be somebody you work with. But think of somebody to bless today or tomorrow. Somebody that you can say something to, and say, hey, I really believe in you, or I'm really pulling for you in this regard, or I appreciate this. I appreciate this about you. And a kind Proverbs, King Solomon said, a kind word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver. So if you say a kind word to somebody and encourage them, it's very valuable. In other words,
and it's also amazing to really, I really realized that I prefer to live my life being in service in some way or another. I also need to be in service to myself and have to work on not putting myself last. So that's a whole other thing. But I really realized I just prefer to live my life like that. So when I heard about this job, it was out of, oh no, what's this master healer going to do? They're without the help they need in order to do what they do. And I just said, well, what they need is something I can do with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind my back. Maybe I'm supposed to be of service here. I don't always have to be the CEO of everything. I can just go help somebody and do that. And it's been really humbling. It's like going back to the basics, going back to revisiting the beginning of all the jobs I've ever had, which I've had many, and going back to that and seeing what I loved about it and what I didn't see when I was younger, when I was really helping somebody else help a lot of people. And I was too young and immature to know how I was helping them.
I love that about you, Kristin. I'll say that right here, and don't edit this out either. I really love that about you. Over the years, I've gotten to know you better and better, and there's so many times when we're just talking, when we're off the radio and stuff, and you're concerned about one person or another, and in ways that you want to help somebody, and there really is. It really is better to give than to receive. Some people think, that's crazy, but I really appreciate that about you.
Oh,
So I'll give you a word of blessing here. You'll be my one today.
Yes, and you're my one today because, oh my gosh, I mean, there were so many things that were so stressful for everybody last year, and my constants were a handful of people, and you were one of them. I mean, one of the, major ones. I mean, I had literally just a handful of people that I went, okay, I got to make it through another week. I get to talk to Paul, and it would just.
Yeah, I felt the same way talking to you.
Yeah. And I thought, well, all this stuff we've said a million times, if we had one person listening, we would still do this.
Yeah. I'll tell one more story because we're almost out of time. But when I was 16, and this is really the big part of my chapter. When I was 16, I really looked up to doctors. Okay, I mean, I was planning on being a carpenter. I wasn't planning on being a doctor, but and there's a guy named Dr. Bob Schindler, and he was in residency in surgery. He later on became a missionary doctor to Africa, and I stayed in touch with him. And then after that, when he came back to the United States many years later, he became the president of the Christian Physicians Association. And but anyway, so he invited me. He came up to me at church. He went to our church. He came up to me one time when I was 16, like Mrs. Arnold had, and he said, my wife and I would like to invite you to come over for a cup of coffee. It was a Sunday night, and I said, okay. I mean, I didn't drink coffee, but I went, and because I thought, what an honor, a doctor, a busy doctor would invite me to come over to his house. And he said, I really feel like you're going somewhere in life, and I just wanted to chat with you about whatever you go into, as your career choice. Don't make that career what you live for. Use the career to help people. And he said, he says, your dad's a carpenter. That's fine. But I know your dad. He's a blessing to the people he works with. He encourages people. I've met people that he's encouraged, and here he comes and serves here in the church and leads he was a worship leader. He leads the songs and helps out in ways that people don't even see. And he said a life of service is where it's at. And so he said, I'm a doctor, but I'm planning on using it to go to Africa and be a missionary there. But you don't have to be a missionary. You don't have to be a doctor. But whatever you go into, use it to benefit others. And so that really stuck with me. And it was just a couple months later that I had two intense dreams that changed my whole life. And Jesus was in the dreams. And the first one, he said, Paul, I want you to be a doctor. And I woke up and I said, okay, I'll be a doctor. And I want you to be a doctor and use it to help people, not just to be a doctor. And then in the second dream, he showed me myself at in my 40s or so, and that I'd be traveling around the world helping teach. He said, I want you to go around the world teaching practical Christian living, practical Christianity, instead of the legalism and different kinds of things that people get taught in the name of religion. And later on, I realized that was Christian psychology, and I wrote over 100 books on Christian psychology, and so I did become a doctor, and I became a psychiatrist, and it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I began going from country to country, and I went to 3 or 4 a year for many, many years, teaching practical Christian living to pastors, missionaries, professional therapists, all over South America and Europe and a lot of different places. And it's really been a great life in that regard. And I think Mrs. Arnold, and I think Dr. Schindler, who's dead of old age by now, and I know he is. His wife's still alive. And I thank God for those dreams. And I feel like at age 76, I'm still fulfilling my dream, even being on the. Yep. In fact, I mentioned the podcast in my chapter.
I saw that. Thank you so much.
Doing this podcast with you is a fulfillment of that dream, because I like helping people, and a lot of people listen to the podcast I've had people tell me that I listened to your podcast on this and this or that topic, and it really gave me it was really a blessing. I had somebody tell me that last week, and
oh, good,
yeah,
yay, good.
So
well,
because fulfilling my dream.
Exactly. And, we, as usual, sometimes we zip through when we have, 20 items on a list, but this needed much more investigation. However, we didn't get through the whole list. So now, listeners, we have our topic for our next show.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about after what we all of everyone listening and Paul and I, there's a lot to talk about from this huge shift in everyone's lives on this entire planet.
Yep.
This isn't just an American thing or just an Italian thing or just a, Armenian thing. This is a world thing. And so we've got more to talk about. And what I love about this too, I do this, listeners, often. I learned this from working with counselors since I was 12. And also the different churches and, places I've gone for inspiration, give you something to chew on. So what I just talked about with Paul today, which was totally not scripted, is something that I will think about how my whole week is going to be examples of what Paul and I just talked about and the things that we know on the list. I'm going to watch those things play out. This is what happens in therapy. When you work with a really good therapist.
Yeah. Good point.
You go,
watch all around you today. All of you listening, watch all around you for little subtle things where God may be speaking to you and where other people are a blessing to you and where you're a blessing to others. The subtle things that we don't normally notice. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kristin. I'm just agreeing with you.
It's wonderful. And that's so true. I mean, things that you hear from someone and then you go, oh, and you will start seeing those things manifest, show up in your life. While you're waiting to listen to the next episode. And that's a great reason to go to therapy too and work with such a great counselor because they give you thoughts, things to think about, and then you see them be enacted in your life. And then you can come in and examine them with an expert. So that's what I love about people in your profession, Paul. That's why I even created this network, was to say thank you. So
Mental Health News Network, yeah.
So we will pick up next week. Paul, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Well, thanks for thinking of the topic that I just wrote a chapter on the night before. See, I mean, that's pretty weird,
Nah, not with us. We always have
not a weird.
That happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not weird in a negative way. It's really pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty exciting.
It is. And we will pick up the last few on our list of I'm sure we'll come up with more, knowing you, Paul. You'll go home and write 50 more.
Well, I want you to add a bunch of them too.
I will. I'm going to think about that all throughout this week. But listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next show.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meier Clinics, please visit our website at meierclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.